Bonjour everyone and welcome back to Casser les Lignes, the French football podcast. I'm your host, Jérémy Magan, and I'm back after a solid month break. I think the last episode was on the 28th or the 29th of December. In between there and now, I went to France. I went to visit the mother country, and I got lucky enough to visit a bit of Paris, but also to go to the Stade de Lorient to witness Marseille beating Lorient and a very strong Marseille team that day as well. So I'm all here, I'm all refreshed. And of course, life didn't stop without me. A lot happened in Ligue 1 during my little month of holidays. And so we're going to obviously focus on the last game day that was just played this weekend, but also, shortly sort of look at all the transfers that have happened for that whole month of January and maybe what to expect between now and the end of the day. As I record, it's the 31st of January. It's 11:30 a.m. here in Australia. So a few transfers might happen between now and tonight, and then the transfer window will be closed. So we'll talk about this match day just past with all the top four not being able to win in match day 20, and we'll talk about those two game weeks that are coming in as well, midweek and at the end of the weekend. It's a big month who starts now for teams like Paris and Monaco and Rennes, and so it'll be interesting to see how they all fare. All right, we're going to get into it, but first, as usual, music. Okay, so what happened in Ligue 1 this whole month? A lot on the transfer market. I mean, of course, the Premier League brought all their money and they spent a lot of money everywhere in Europe, which then sort of like made other moves happen, but I was a bit surprised about how much happened. We're going to quickly try and go through the names that are, I guess, most known. Luis Suarez from Marseille went to Almeria in Spain. He actually scored this weekend with Almeria. Charbonnier, who's always better in Ligue 2 than he is in Ligue 1, left Auxerre to go to Saint-Etienne, and he also scored a couple of goals since he went there. Ablin was on loan from Rennes to Auxerre, and just after that, Rennes. So, I think it was Kalimwendo got injured after Terrier already had been injured, which is, I guess, problematic probably for the team coached by Genesio. Dolberg left Nice for Hoffenheim after spending the first 6 months of the year in Sevilla. Lyon recruited Dejan Lovren, a former Lyon player. They stick with their Lyon DNA situation. Lovren, who was performing well at St. Petersburg Zenit, and is now back at Lyon. Touré from Marseille was loaned to Auxerre. Apia from Nantes was transferred to Saint-Etienne in second division. Marseille sent Gerson back to Brazil, back to Flamengo, where he was great before joining Marseille. Robson Bamboo from Nice is on loan in Brazil as well in Vasco da Gama. Badia Chile went to Chelsea for 40 million euros. Chelsea is just spending all kinds of money since the Americans took over. Malo Gusto, of course, has gone to Chelsea as well, but he's then loaned back to Lyon for the rest of the season. Larsonneur, who couldn't find a spot between the post at Brest anymore, has been transferred to Saint-Etienne, who is playing where he is playing since. Malinovsky, of course, is on loan at Marseille from Atalanta Bergame. Ruslan Malinovsky, who's having a couple of games already for Marseille and maybe not performing as well as the Marseille fans would like to, but he is slowly getting there. Very, very strong left-footed player. Thomasson left Strasbourg to go to Lens. Pierre Gabriel left Strasbourg to go to Mayence. And of course, Ludovic Ajorc left Strasbourg to go to Mayence as well. So Strasbourg has lost a few important players. Lemina left Nice to go to Wolverhampton. Who did I have as well that was important to talk about? Da Cunha from Nice is at Calcio Com. Jebels went to Senegal in Switzerland. Ouattara, of course, Lorient. Ouattara from Lorient went to Bournemouth. There's, of course, another player from Lorient that we expect to move, Terem Moffi, and we are waiting to see where he was going to end, but he should not be a Lorient player anymore at the end of this mercato. Sarabia left Paris Saint-Germain for Wolverhampton. Like I said, a lot has happened. Strasbourg has recruited Morgan Sanson from Aston Villa and Sobol from the FC Bruges. Joao Victor left Benfica. He's going to come to Nantes on loan. We don't know him too much, but I think we need to keep an eye on him. Yonut Radu, the goalkeeper from the young goalkeeper from Inter Milan has signed at Auxerre because the Auxerre goalkeeper, Benoit Costil, is now in Lille to be Chevalier's number 2. Jardim, who was Lille's number 2 goalkeeper, is now in Vasco da Gama. Lee Hadji, the young prospect from Lille who never really made it to the first team, went to Sutherland. Goulam, the international, who was free since this summer, has signed for Angers, who's desperately in need of strong players. Toko Ekambi from Lyon is on loan at Rennes. I said Costil was going to Lille. Another familiar face, Benjamin Lecomte, was on loan at Barcelona, Espanyol Barcelona, is back at Monaco, and then Monaco transferred him to Montpellier, and he actually had a fantastic game this weekend, Benjamin Lecomte. And then, of course, Bemba Dieng left Marseille to sign for Lorient for 10 million euros. Gomis, the second goalkeeper in Rennes, is now, or the third goalkeeper, I should say, is now in Como in Italy as well. Andy Delors left Nice to be loaned at Nantes. He wasn't really convincing at Nice, and Nantes was in desperate need of a striker since Colomani went to shine in the Bundesliga. Ounahi, who had such a great World Cup, the Moroccan international, has left Angers to sign for Marseille. Pape Gueye, the Marseille midfielder, is on loan at Seville. What else do we have? Lyon recruited this young striker from Heerenveen. His name is Amin Sarr. He's a Swedish native. It'll be interesting to have a look at it. And Makengo as well left Lorient to go to Udinese. Albert Ellis, who was one of the only players who was actually good at Bordeaux last year, he's on loan at Brest and will finish the season over there. So yeah, I think it's probably covered everything. Or Romain Fèvre, as well, left Lyon to go to Lorient, transferred for €1 million. Probably a bit of a flop for Lyon there. They really thought they were going to be able to keep Fèvre and make him progress. And just for the fun, Morgan Schneiderlin from Nice has left and is on loan to Western Sydney Wanderers. Joined me on the island continent. That's about what happened in those 30 days. Like I said, we're still expecting some things to happen. We're still expecting Terem Moffi to most likely sign with Nice. Keylor Navas will probably leave Paris Saint-Germain, and apparently Nottingham Forest is around. Malcolm from Zenit and Skriniar from Inter Milan would potentially sign with Paris Saint-Germain. Dembele could leave Lyon to go to Everton. A few things we expect to happen, and one of the word as well was Marseille, who was on a Braga forward. I can't remember his name. Vitinha was his name. We'll see. We'll see what happened, but it was already a pretty busy month in Ligue 1 as far as the transfer goes. When I wasn't here, of course, a few important results have happened. I think it's important to mention that Paris Saint-Germain lost twice between the end of December and the end of January. They were undefeated until the World Cup break, and now with those two losses to Rennes and to Lens at the table before the 20th game of the season, they were only 3 points ahead of Lens and 5 points ahead of Marseille before such a crucial month for Paris Saint-Germain. It would have been something that I'm sure they would have happy not to happen. Anyway, that's the transfers. That's sort of like the context set for Ligue 1 before match day 20. Now we're going to go quickly into, I guess, the 3 games that I have watched, and we'll talk about the other one. So the first game that I watched was the first game of the weekend, the derby of Brittany, Lorient against Rennes, and Lorient, les Merlus, who realized the performance to be able to beat Rennes at home. Lorient doesn't really does well against Rennes usually in recent days, and Lorient, to be honest, looked like they had hit a little bit of a slump since those performances pre-World Cup that were so great. So since they came back from the World Cup, they had lost at home against Montpellier. Montpellier was not the best team. They barely won in Angers 2-1. Then they had drew against Monaco 2-2, and then lost to Marseille in Marseille 3-1. So the game against Rennes was obviously expected by Lorient fans and Lorient players alike to try and sort of bounce back, especially with Ouattara gone and Moffi on the way to go. So neither of the players, of course, were on the starting lineup. Yet, no Moffi, no problem, I guess, for Lorient. They were able to get the 3 points in the game that Rennes kind of like outrageously dominated. 67% possession for Genesio's men, 19 shots, 6 on target, and for Lorient, 4 shots, 4 on target, and 2 goals. And of course, the football was played by Rennes and Lorient. Lorient had moments, they didn't park the bus and then only play in counter-attack. They had moments where they were doing this, but they also had 5 minutes at the beginning of the game, 5 minutes between 10th and 15 when they score, 5 minutes again between the 25th and 30th, where they had moments where they were actually in possession, forcing Rennes to defend a bit lower, and they were still able to accelerate despite Rennes trying to defend a little bit lower on their end. Rennes was playing in a like a 5-4-1 versus /3-5-2 with obviously the usual movement that happened into a Genesio's team. And I think it kind of could have worked, should have worked against a team like Lorient, but they were never able to really break into that defense. And also when Lorient defends low, Lorient brings such intensity in their own box. There's always a foot, a leg. They really literally throw themselves onto the ball. It's really hard to really get through them. Once Rennes was able to get through them, Vito Manone was just in the form of his life. I don't remember seeing a game of Vito Manone, the goalkeeper from Lorient, while Mvogo is injured. And I remember a game where he was so strong. Saves from another world, on a header from Guiri, on a shot from outside the box. It really was everywhere. It's obviously a super important result for Lorient on the table. They were, before the game, 5 points behind Rennes, and so now they're only 2 points behind Rennes. It also slows down Rennes, who had a chance to, maybe overtake Monaco, maybe get closer to Marseille and Lens, and instead sit there waiting for the next game in, again, what's going to be for Rennes a pretty busy month. They're playing Shakhtar Donetsk in the Europa League on the 17th and 24th of February, and in that month they're playing Lille, Toulouse, Clermont, all teams that are known to play football. So it's not going to be easy for Bruno Genesio and his men to bounce back, but obviously they have all intentions to bounce back, knowing what to do. But in that sense, it was Regis Lebris's time to shine again. We know how great the coach has been for Lorient, and it's good to get those marquee results and to be able to steal points from one of the top four. And I'm sure they'll be all celebrating the goals. Of course, I didn't say it, but Montassar Tailby scored the first goal at the 13th minute. Theo Lebris made it 2-0 at the 31st minute. A beautiful left-shooted effort that ended up in the top left corner of Mandanda. And Flavien Tay reduced the score at the 72nd minute, but it wouldn't be enough for Rennes, despite pushing until the end of the game. Lorient, a team that I was wondering if they were sort of like going to go down in the second part of the season with all the players that they lost, but clearly this is not their intention, and it'll be interesting to see what they do in the next 4 months. The next game that I watched was Marseille against Monaco, of course, on Sunday morning here in Australia, Saturday night in France. And after 3 minutes of the game, I tweeted Game of the Year incoming, because the intensity in that start of the game was insane. Monaco really brought it to Marseille. I mean, Marseille, we know how great they've been since the beginning of the season, in the past 2 months specifically, like a month before the World Cup and a month after. They've been sort of like this machine, well-oiled machine, those road rollers. They just relentlessly attack. And when it's not the striker, it's the midfielder. When it's not the midfielder, it's the center back. There's always somebody bringing in numbers up front. And it's been really hard for teams to contain them. Rennes in the French Cup lost to them, and Marseille seemed super comfortable. Lorient, when they came to visit the Velodrome, they scored first, but Marseille never panicked and then slowly put the machine into place and ended up winning 3-1. And so Monaco, visiting the Stade Velodrome, knew what to expect, yet Philippe Clément really brought the game to the Marseille team in the midfield. I think Matazo and Fofana had an excellent game, really nullified Rongier, Verretou, and Guendouzi. Guendouzi specifically really struggled, I think, in that game, and he was replaced at halftime. And then they had the ability with Ben Seguir as sort of a number 10 and Golovin on the left, Kripin Diatta on the right, Monaco to really explode behind the Marseille defense. And Marseille, because they get comfortable ball to feet, you always have Mbemba or Kolasinac, who were the right center-back and the left center-back, bringing numbers forward and often sort of like combining with the left wing-back and the right wing-back to go all the way up into the box. This time around, they couldn't do it because Ben Yedder was just stuck on Gigot, not dropping down. And whenever Monaco was getting the ball back, Golovin and Diatta were so fast on the wings that it really created a lot of issue for Marseille. Marseille can be lucky that Verretou scored that own goal on a free kick at the 17th minute, but Ben Yedder had a couple of opportunities, Ben Seguir had a couple of opportunities, so did Golovin, so did Diatta. Monaco could have been up 3-0 by the 30th minute, and nobody could have said anything because Marseille struggled to really put their game into place. And then slowly, they started doing what they do the last 10 minutes of the first half. They started keep possession of the ball again, showing what they can do, developing the football that has been so good for the past months, and also adjusted to, I guess, the new personnel. Nuno Tavares was back from suspension, and he's got a football style that's very particular to him, which is go forward and shoot, go forward and shoot. I don't know how many shots there was. One of them did bring the goal from Alexis Sanchez early on the second half, with unfortunately for him, Nubel making a mistakes and just releasing the ball in front of him, and Sanchez finishing. But between Tavares and Malinovskoi, who just arrived, it felt a bit unbalanced at one point in the middle of the park. And mind you, at halftime, Guendouzi Tudor decided to get Guendouzi out, put Balerdi in, so Balerdi would be the central defender, and Gigot would take the left, and Kolasinac would take the left wing back, and Tavares the right wing back, which worked out well because that's where the goal come from Tavares being onto the right side. And in the second half, Marseille dominated a bit more. Shouts for a penalty at one point when Kolasinac is in the box and Marimpad tackled him and sort of land on his ankle. And when I say shouts for penalty, I think Longoria said something along the lines of France is the worst VAR in the whole of Europe. There should have been a red card and a penalty, and nobody wanted to check it. It's a shame. That's Longoria's word, not mine. But yeah, Monaco, I thought should have regrets because they could have killed the game early on. And then after that, Marseille could have regrets because, as usual, they dominate, and it's really hard for them to actually be dangerous. At the end of the day, the game was what it was, a 1-1 draw. 1-1 draw that Monaco would be happy to bring back for Marseille, and Marseille would probably feel like it was a missed opportunity, especially when you know that Paris eventually didn't win and neither did Lens. But it was a game of I think, good factor. It was 22 shots, 6 on target for Marseille, 11 shots, 4 on target for Monaco. The pass accuracy that was a bit lower for Monaco, but that's because they were trying to play that direct attacking football, and not a lot of fouls. So a game that really was just sort of fluent, and that ended in a deserved 1-1, I think, which means that on the table, Marseille is still 5 points ahead of Monaco. The next game that I watched, of course, was the last game of the weekend, Paris Saint-Germain against Reims, and what a game. Well, Paris Saint-Germain wasn't able to win. I kind of want to say that they didn't deserve to win anyway with how they've been playing, and I don't want to sound harsh when I say that, but I just think they're just not playing at the level that we expect them to play, right? And so I know I said several times now on this podcast that there would be a Paris Saint-Germain, pre-World Cup and a Paris Saint-Germain post-World Cup, because their star player Neymar and Messi and Mbappe were, gearing up for the World Cup. And of course, I'm not even mentioning them, but Marquinhos, same thing. Hakimi, who had a very good World Cup, same thing. Anybody except Verratti and Donnarumma, basically, was gearing up for the World Cup. And then the after World Cup just seems a bit flat. Those two defeats against Rennes and against Lens. Now this draw against Reims over the weekend. I think Paris Saint-Germain is going to have a very a very complicated month of February upcoming, and they need to be very strong to be able to go through. To me, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It's either they go through in the Champions League and they'll struggle in Ligue 1, or they get out of the Champions League because it's Bayern Munich in front of them in the round of 16. And then hopefully for them, they can try and make it, and they can scrap. They can try and get to the scraps and try and get some points. But yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe if they are out of the Champions League, actually, they're probably going to struggle for 2 weeks and then they end up smashing everybody like they did last year. Probably what's going to happen. But anyway, I kind of wish for them that they do go through Bayern Munich and they do finally prove that they're the team they're supposed to be, because they don't look it right now. I'm not sure what's happening in the locker room, but it's just not. Football play isn't great. Vitinha, who was so promising at the beginning of the season, is just not that good anymore in that second part of the season. Same for Fabian Ruiz, and same for Soler, who hasn't really, sort of like get used to Paris Saint-Germain yet. They are a talented player, and it's their first season. So I'm not going to be the one who says, oh, they're washed up and they're done. We've seen Leo Messi last year, who struggled and came back all guns blazing this season. So I'm not saying they're done, but they really need to find a way to do something, because against Reims, Reims equalized at the 96th minute. The first goal came from Neymar at the 51st minute. Then Marco Verratti took a red card at the 59th minute. A red card that I don't think he was harsh. I think, it was maybe a very dark yellow, and so a light red. But also I think that not all referees give a red card in these circumstances. in Ligue 1 even. So I think it probably Verratti might have felt hard on by. And Folarin Balogun is the one who equalized at the 96th minute. A superb goal, by the way. A ball that was lost in the middle of the park by Paris Saint-Germain, and one pass by Doumbia, and Balogun was able to overtake both Marquinhos and Ramos, dribble around Donnarumma, and then score it, which is a pretty special goal to score at this time of the game against a team like Paris Saint-Germain. But yeah, like I said, Reims wasn't undeserving. 17 shots, 4 on target. I think at halftime they had shot like 11 times, and they really were trying to cause issues to Paris Saint-Germain, who wasn't playing to their usual strength, wasn't playing to their usual pace. They ended up with 12 shots, 4 of them on target, including that goal from Neymar, who was a little bit lucky in the build-up into the box. And so Reims, with Will Steele, the 30-year-old coach at its head, is still undefeated. I think it's 12 games undefeated now for Reims. It's a great story for Will Steele and his boys. And, you know, you could have seen the joy of Steele and the whole bench when Balogun equalized with the last kick of the game, literally, because after that they just had the kickoff and then the 3 whistles were blown. It was a great performance for Reims. It is disappointing for Paris, and it's important, I think, for us to kind of look at what Paris does and what they don't do. And, you know, it looks like every time there's an issue on the pitch, we kind of want to look off the pitch what's going on. And on Sunday night, you know, Paris was wearing those black and gold shirt with the Chinese scripture in the back instead of their name in Western alphabet, I guess. Which is all, you know, it's all well and good to do marketing, but, you know, maybe they need to focus a bit more on what's happening on the field. It kind of feel like it was so marketing orientated that they couldn't, you know, sort of like replace Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar, because it was the game where they were supposed to be sort of like showcased. Although, you know, when you're down to 10 men, you kind of want to have maybe 2 of those 3 players out so you can have a stronger defense. They resisted for a long time, and then eventually at the last kick of the game, like I said, Balogun was able to score. You know, Galtier in the press conference said that I think he was being sort of like polite, and he was like, it's very surprising that you're up 1-0, there's 10 seconds left, and you're going to concede. It surprises me with the experience of my player, were the words of Christophe Galtier, which clearly means that he was disappointed in his team's performance, and he didn't want to like be too harsh on them, but he expected obviously better from them. You know, we all expect better from a team like Paris Saint-Germain when they host Reims at the Parc des Princes, but it wasn't to be. 1-1 was the final score, and 1-1 was kind of like the final score all over some of the pitch, right? This weekend, all the games that were important. There was another game on Saturday night, Sunday morning, between Troyes and Lens, who also finished at 1-1, despite Lens' best effort to try and take the game. Troyes were the one to score first with Patrick Kisnorbo, the Austrian coach, finally getting a draw after those. I think it was a draw and a win to start his tenure at Troyes, and then 2 heavy loss, a loss in cup, and now finally a draw again. He parked the bus like I've never seen a bus parked before, with Troyes 74% possession for Lens, 21 shots, 4 on target. Troyes had 6 shots, 1 on target and 1 goal. Mind you, Troyes was up 1-0 at the 50th minute. They could have been up 2-0 when Ronny Lopez missed almost the unmissable, and then Adrien Thomasson, the new recruit, scored for Lens to equalize and sort of keep Lens into the run to try and challenge for the first spot on the table. It's interesting to see how Lens was playing. They were trying their best. You could clearly say that they're struggling against a team that plays such a defensive-minded football, and you could tell that they miss a player like Adam Buxa that they have on their bench, or not on the bench, but at home because he's injured, who brings size, who can be at the reception of those crosses. I think I don't want to say the wrong word, but I think there were about something around like a ridiculous number of like 33 or 34 crosses for Lens, which obviously, if you can't score from all those crosses, clearly there's something that's missing in your weapon arsenal up front. So hopefully they get either Buxa soon, or they're able to promote a player that has a bit of a different playing style than what Openda brings to them right now up front. 1-1 was the final result for Troyes and Lens. The other results that we've seen over the weekend, a bit of a surprise in Nice, I have to say, with Nice beating Lille 1-0. I mean, you know, we expect Nice to be good because of how much money there is behind the club right now, but they've been struggling all season, and Lille has been very good this season. So seeing Lille unable to beat Nice was a bit of a surprise, I think, from where I stand. But good for Nice and good for Gaëtan Laborde, who I really like, for scoring the goal that made the difference. There was a 0-0 draw in Clermont between Clermont and Nantes. Not only 0 goals scored, but 0 shot on target, which is the first time ever in Ligue 1. First time ever since Opta analyzes the competition in 2005-2006. Not one shot of target over 90 minutes. Pretty poor from both teams. And although we know that they can actually play good football, they just wouldn't work for them. Montpellier won in Auxerre. I want to say finally Montpellier bouncing back. Auxerre for once was actually playing nice football. 16 shots, 4 on target, 60% possession. But Montpellier was reckless. 4 shots, 3 on target, 2 goals. Really showing who they were. And despite Yonut Rajut doing a couple of good things for Auxerre, he still conceded twice. I mentioned it before, Benjamin Lecomte, the goalkeeper of Montpellier, in exceptional form for his first game back in Ligue 1. Good to see Lecomte. I enjoyed this keeper when he was at Monaco and she started making mistake over mistake. In Strasbourg, there was another game. Strasbourg got dominated by Toulouse, and Tige Dalinga, the former best goal scorer of the second Netherlands division, who joined Toulouse in summer, scoring at the 25th and the 51st minute. After Kevin Gamero had opened the score for Strasbourg, unfortunately for Strasbourg, they weren't able to equalize after, and they even lost Kevin Gamero on a red card, a frustration foul at the 93rd minute. Which I'm sure he's probably beating himself up about, because he's going to miss the next couple of games. In Ajaccio, in Corsica, Ajaccio was hosting Lyon, and Lyon won 2-0. Johan Le Penant, the young midfielder, scoring at the 20th minute, and Alexander Lacazette at the 71st minute. 2 shots on target, 2 goals for Lyon. It's not all pretty, but it's a win, and I'm sure they'll take that. And the last game that we haven't mentioned yet was Brest against Angers, and a very strong performance for Brest. I mean, we know that Angers is really having issues this season, and losing Bounahi and Bouffal as well, who's going to Qatar, is not going to help. But Brest won 4-0. The goal scorer, Le Douaron, at the 40th minute, Mounier at the 34th, Honora at the 59th, and Pierre Lesmelou at the 84th, really taking no prisoner. It's hard for Angers, and it's hard. They really need to try and find I don't know what they need to try and find, but they need to try and bounce back. They look destined for Ligue 2 as it stands, and it would take, I think, something special for them to try and not be relegated at the end of the season. The table, let's have a look at it. So Angers, like I said, 8 points in 20 games, pretty dire. In front of them at 19th place, it's Auxerre with 13 points. And then ahead, Ajaccio and Strasbourg are 15 points each. As a reminder, 4 teams are getting relegated this season. And then ahead of them, it's Brest at 18, Troyes 19, Montpellier at 20, Nantes at 22. So there's a little gap already being formed between that bottom 4 and the 4 teams ahead of them. They need to get results, the 4 teams at the bottom, and they need to get results sooner rather than later. At the top, Paris Saint-Germain is up front, of course, with 48 points. They are not the best defense anymore. Lens is the best defense with only 14 goals conceded, and PSG has conceded 15. I think it was the case already before that game, if I'm not mistaken. But they are the best attack, of course, with 49 goals scored. So PSG 48 points, Lens 45, Marseille 43, Monaco 38, and Rennes 37. It's tight at the top, 11 points between first and fifth. We used to have 11 points between first and second. So it's good to see this Ligue 1 being a little bit tighter. At the goal scoring ladder, Mbappe is at the top with 13, followed by a bit of an army. Lacazette, Jonathan David, Neymar, and Moffi, 12 goals each. On the assist ladder, it's Messi and Neymar with 10 assists each that are topping it, with Klose 7 and Sotoka Kabela 6 each. Following this week, we have 2 match day. There's a midweek match day, match day 21, and there's a weekend one, match day 22. And the games that we all will be keeping an eye on is, of course, Montpellier, Paris Saint-Germain. We want to know if Paris will bounce back from it. There's a Nantes Marseille who would look good. Lens Nice is going to be interesting, with Gisolfi, the former Lens general manager, who now joined Nice, and maybe some bitter, a bitter meeting after hearts being broken. Rennes will be playing Strasbourg, Monaco, Auxerre, between other games. And then on this weekend, we'll kick off with Paris Saint-Germain against Strasbourg. Troyes will play Lyon. Rennes will play Lille. There's an interesting Clermont-Monaco to come up, and a Brest-Lens, and Marseille-Nice, one of the derby of the South, will close our weekend of football. That's it for this episode of Casser les Lignes, Breaking the Lines French football podcast. Of course, as usual, go and check out Breaking the Lines, their article, their podcast, Aera de Rigore, the Italian podcast, and Corta Linhas, the podcast on Portuguese football, but also the Tactic Room. And I hope that you guys enjoyed all our podcasts about the World Cup as well. I'm glad that I'm back and I'm doing this French football podcast. I hope you guys are enjoying listening too. We'll see you again, of course, next week. We'll talk about match day 21 and 22, and we'll see what was the latest on the transfer window. Did Marseille get their striker? Did Lyon get a defensive midfielder? Did Paris Saint-Germain finally get Skriniar? It looks like it's in the back, but you never know in football these days. Anyway, in the meantime, I will see you next week, and thank you for listening to Casser les Lignes after a month's break. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.